Welcome back. As we've mentioned earlier, we learned this week that White House counsel Don McGahn has been cooperating with special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. New York Times reports that McGahn likely gave investigators information about possible efforts to obstruct justice that they could not have learned from anyone else. He reportedly offered insight into President Trump's mindset and actions involving the firing of FBI Director James Comey and his attempts to potentially fire Mueller. Now, the Times says McGahn cooperated in part because he feared Mr. Trump was setting him up to take the blame for an obstruction charge. The president has reiterated this morning that Mr. McGahn cooperated because he asked him to cooperate. Joining me now is President Trump's current lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, welcome back to Meet the Press, sir.
Hi, Chuck. How are you?
I'm good. I think our audience is going to be a little confused. A White House counsel, a personal lawyer, former lawyers, all of that. So that's why I'm trying to be careful with titles. Let me start with the New York Times story and Don McGahn. And let me ask it this way. The previous legal team was Ty Cobb and John Dowd. They wanted to fully cooperate. You and Emmett Flood have wanted to put more parameters around what special counsel Robert Mueller would have done. Would you have ever recommended the amount of cooperation that Don McGahn has given to Robert Mueller had you been the attorney at the beginning?
Well, you know, they represented him at a different stage in this investigation. And actually, they did something very, very helpful. They allowed 32 witnesses to testify. They turned over 1.4 million documents. They didn't raise executive privilege, or in this case with Mr. McGahn, attorney-client privilege, so that the independent counsel, special counsel, could get as much evidence as possible. And in fact, I think John Dowd would tell you, with an agreement with Bob Mueller, that it would be concluded quickly. I guess if I had known the outcome, that Mueller would not conclude it quickly, that this really wasn't an attempt in good faith to try to work out some resolution of this, I might have chosen a different strategy. I'm pretty sure they would have. But be that as it may, it puts us in a very strong position to say they don't need to question him. They have all the information.
Why is that? How is that? Actually, doesn't this put you in a position of, now it looks like you're afraid of being questioned? I ask it this way. The special counsel has an eyewitness on whether or not the president obstructed justice, right? We don't know whether he did or not, but he has a potential eyewitness that either is exculpatory or is problematic for you. But doesn't that actually underscore the reason why the special counsel has to talk to the president?
Absolutely not. First of all, we have a good sense, obviously, of what Mr. McGahn testified to. I can figure it out from...
How do you say that good sense? Have you debriefed him?
No, but Mr. Dowd has a good sense of it. He talked to them at the time.
So you don't know what Mr. McGahn... You don't know 100% of what he testified to Mr. Mueller?
I think that through John Dowd, we have a pretty good sense of it. And John Dowd yesterday said, I'll use his words rather than mine, that McGahn was a strong witness for the president. So I don't need to know much more about that. And also, they don't need to know what the president is going to say, because the president has said it. And we've told them that we would stipulate that what the president has said is the president's true belief that he did nothing wrong, that he wasn't involved in collusion, that he wasn't involved in obstruction. And they have yet to propound a question to us, give us a question, where there is not an answer to it already by the President of the United States. So the only reason they could possibly want the President of the United States is because they're desperate for some kind of charge they can hang their hat on. They don't have collusion or conspiracy, as Brennan pointed out. And
how do you know that? Why, you say this always so definitively. How do you know they don't?
I know they don't because look, this whole McGahn thing leaked from them. If they had some kind of evidence that there was collusion or there was obstruction, don't you think it'd have been leaked? I mean, they leak everything else.
I mean, let's talk with collusion. I mean, the Trump Tower meeting itself is at least evidence of you better investigate. How is it not?
Well, because the meeting was originally for the purpose of getting information about Clinton. The meeting turned into a meeting
which in itself it's attempted collusion. I understand.
No,
you just said it. Meeting was intended to get dirt on Hillary Clinton from a Kremlin lawyer.
No.
That was the intention of the meeting. You just said it.
That was the original intention of the meeting. It turned out to be a meeting about another subject, and it was not pursued at all. And of course, any meeting with regard to getting information on your opponent is something any candidate's staff would take. If someone said, I have information about your opponent, you would take that meeting. If it happens to be
from the Russian government?
She didn't represent the Russian government. She's a private citizen. I don't even know if they knew she was Russian at the time. All they had was her name.
They knew she was Russian. I think they knew she was Russian, but
well, they knew it when they met with her, not when they set up the meeting. You told me, you asked me, did they show an intention to do anything with Russians? Well, all they knew is that a woman with a Russian name wanted to meet with them. They didn't know she was a representative of the Russian government, and indeed, she's not a representative of the Russian government. So this is much ado about nothing. Plus, the President of the United States wasn't at that meeting. He didn't know about that meeting. He found out about it after. And by the time he found out about it, it was nothing.
Let me ask you this. Let me just go back to the core.
If this is their case for collusion, good luck, Mueller.
Let me go back to the core part of the investigation, which is, do you believe that somebody stole emails from John Podesta and the DNC and leaked them to WikiLeaks? That factually happened, right? You believe that happened? That crime happened?
Well, I believe that somebody got them and they didn't know that those emails were gotten. And I'm almost certain from the reports that I've read that it's hacking. And it looks like it's pretty clear that it was Russian.
So it's important to you, but it's important to Mr. Mueller to get to the bottom of that, no?
Of course, but he's had months to get to the bottom of it. He's got 1.4 million documents. He's got at least 32 witnesses in which we didn't raise executive privilege. And in the case of Mr. McGahn, we had even a better case. You could have had attorney-client privilege. So the president encouraged him to testify, is happy that he did, is quite secure that there is nothing in the testimony that will hurt the president. And John Dowd told you that when he said he was a strong witness for the president. So I believe this is a desperate special counsel who leaked this to the New York Times, illegally, I might add. And in fact,
do you have any evidence of this? Do you have any evidence that he leaked this to the New York Times?
Well, then the only other one that could have done it was McGahn. I mean, I didn't leak it to the Times, and Jay Sekulow didn't leak it to the Times. The president sure as heck didn't. So who could it be? It could be McGahn, and McGahn's not doing it. And he would have done it a long time ago if he was going to do it. They're down to desperation time. They have to write a report, and they don't have a single bit of evidence. Even Brennan said an extraordinary...
Let me ask you this, Mr. Brown. I want to play. Aren't you and the president to blame for the delay in the Mueller report? Take a listen about this is how you have answered the question about a Mueller interview. Take a listen. You'll enjoy it, I promise.
Never be on 2 or 3 hours. If there were written answers, and they most probably would be under oath. The main focus that we want, I can tell you, simply is Russia. They would probably limit it to collusion and obstruction. He doesn't need to ask a single question on obstruction. But if we do that under oath, we end up in a sort of Martha Stewart situation. Mueller has all the answers. We've given them.
Can't you speed up Mueller's report? And can't you have more credibility about beating up Mueller to get his report out if you get the president to sit down with him?
First of all, get the word credibility out of it. I think we have plenty of credibility. The last 2 letters that came, they took about 11 or 12 days to respond to our letter, sent us a response that sets forth a negotiating position about an interview. We didn't reject it. We didn't say out of hand that we're not going to do it. And they put some pressure on us to come back quickly. Well, we did. We came back in 4 days. It is now a week and a half later, and they have not responded to our letter. Now, don't tell me that we're delaying this if they're spending a week and a half getting back to us. I don't know why they're doing that, but they're sure as heck not showing any desire to expedite it. I can't get them to write a letter faster than they have. And if you want to start counting up the time that we have taken to draft the letter.
You believe this is on them, that you would have, that you guys have not delayed the interviewing, delayed the negotiations with Mr.
Yes,
Mueller.
each time by 3 or 4 days so we could write a letter in response. They have taken 2 to 3 weeks to get back to us. So what I have to tell you is, look, I'm not going to be rushed into having him testify so that he gets trapped into perjury. And when you tell me that, he should testify because he's going to tell the truth and he shouldn't worry, well, that's so silly because it's somebody's version of the truth, not the truth. He didn't have a conversation
Truth is
about...
truth. I don't mean to go like...
No, it isn't truth. Truth isn't truth. The President of the United States says, I didn't...
Truth isn't truth. Mr. Mayor, do you realize what...
No.
This is going to become a bad meme.
Don't do this to me.
Don't do truth isn't truth to me.
Donald Trump says, I didn't talk about Flynn with Comey. Comey says you did talk about it. So tell me what the truth is.
Don McGahn might know.
If you're such a genius, Don McGahn doesn't know. If that's the situation, they have 2 pieces of evidence. Trump says, I didn't tell him, and the other guy says that he did say it. Which is the truth? And you're, I mean, maybe
point,
you know
right.
because you're
Under
a genius.
two people, I know you're right. I don't read minds on that front. Let me ask you this final question.
No. Let me finish. We have a credibility gap between the two of them. You got to select one or the other. Now, who do you think Mueller's going to select? One of his best friends, Comey, or the president, who he has been carrying on a completely wild, crazy, unorthodox investigation?
Is it possible he makes a conclusion based on who's been more truthful over the years?
It's possible that he'll make the conclusion on which of the two statements is more logical, which of the two statements has more common sense. Yeah, it's possible he can do that. But no, you can't bring into question prior conduct. You're not even allowed to do that at a trial.
All right, one final question. You said if Mueller doesn't get this done in 2 or 3 weeks, basically referring to September 1st, we will just unload on him like a ton of bricks. What is that? What does that mean? For
interfering with the election when he had no reason to do that, because he could have gotten this done earlier. The person who's delayed here.
But what are you going to do? What is Mueller, bricks? Is the president going to fire him?
No,
is the president
we're not going to fire him. We're going to point out to the public. We're going to point out to the public how he has acted improperly, and he's now violating a Justice Department rule about not carrying on an investigation.
That's not the rule.
Within 60 days of
it's about issuing indictments and things like that. He can go dark.
No, it's about carrying on a public. It is not. It's about carrying on a public investigation. If he has to issue a subpoena during that period of time, it would be a gross interference in the election, when he could have issued the subpoena 6 months. 6 months before, 3 months before.
I think that is what we were both agreeing on that. I think we're both
I'd like to comment about Brennan. Brennan made the extraordinary charge that the president was treasonous, and then just said to you, and I commend you for your questioning, that he has no information that the president is guilty of conspiracy. Well, I mean, that is just conjecture that this man accuses people of a crime that could carry death as the result. Totally,
it's a highly charged word.
Unhinged character who shouldn't have a security clearance.
Mr. Mayor, I will leave it there. As always, sir, thanks for coming on, sharing your views. Always interesting to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chuck.